While I was finalizing a $9 million deal in Europe, parents pawned my car for sister's business when I returned. Mom said she needed it more. I said 6 words. Her face fell. The Berlin deal was finally sealed. 7 exhausting days of negotiations, and I'd secured the European expansion my boss had been chasing for 3 years. My body ached from the 10-hour flight, but satisfaction pulsed through me as I steered my rental car toward my parents' suburban home in Westfield. My luggage waited in the trunk. I'd promised Mom I'd stop by before heading to my downtown apartment, knowing she'd want to hear about my trip and probably force-feed me something homemade. The setting sun painted the familiar neighborhood in golden hues as I turned onto Oak Avenue. I pulled into the driveway, noticing Dad had finally fixed the broken fence gate. Small victories. My black heels clicked as I stepped out, smoothing my navy blazer. The flight had wrinkled my white silk shirt, but I still looked every inch the senior investment analyst who just landed a career-defining deal. I smiled, fishing the garage remote from my purse. I'd stored my Mustang here while traveling, safer than street parking at my apartment complex. The familiar beep as I pressed the button. The mechanical whir as the door lifted. Then nothing but empty space where my car should be. No, no, no. The words tumbled out as my stomach dropped. The garage stretched before me, barren except for Dad's workbench and Mom's Christmas decorations. My fingers went numb. The remote clattered to the concrete as I dropped my suitcase and rushed toward the house. This couldn't be happening. Not my car. Not my Mustang. I burst through the kitchen door. They were waiting for me, Mom, Dad, and my sister Camilla seated around the wooden table like they were staging an intervention. The silence hit me first, then the guilt radiating from each of them. Dad couldn't meet my eyes. He stared at his weathered hands spread flat on the table. "Denora, honey." Mom's voice carried that sugary tone she used when breaking bad news. "Don't overreact. Where's my car?" The words scraped my throat. Camilla straightened her shoulders, confidence plastered on her face like one of her Instagram filters. "It's just temporary, Denny. I'll pay it all back." "Pay what back?" My voice dropped dangerously low. "Where is my Mustang?" Mom glanced at Dad, who still wouldn't look up. "We had to make a tough decision, sweetie. Camilla needed startup capital for her business, and we took it to Premier Pawn." Dad finally spoke, his voice rough. "Got $52,000 for it." The room tilted sideways. "You did what with my car?" "It's a loan against the car, not a sale." Camilla jumped in. "Once my skincare line launches, I'll pay it back with interest. You'll have your car back in no time." My mind flashed to the endless nights I'd spent hunched over financial models at Goldman & Associates. 80-hour weeks for 7 years straight. Saying no to vacations, to a better apartment, to everything while I saved. I remembered Grandpa's weathered hands guiding mine over the engine of his friend's Mustang when I was 10. These machines aren't just transportation, Denora girl. They're dreams made solid. His eyes had crinkled with absolute certainty. "Someday you'll have your own beauty. Just be patient." The day I'd finally driven my Mustang home, tears had streamed down my face. Not just for the midnight blue paint or the rumble of the V8, but for what it represented, proof that my sacrifices meant something. "My skincare startup is revolutionary," Camilla was saying, flipping her highlighted hair over her shoulder. "I've developed a formula that I don't care if you've discovered the fountain of youth in a bottle." My voice cut through her pitch. "That car wasn't yours to take." Mom's lips thinned. "Now, Denora, family helps family. You make excellent money at your job. Camilla needs this chance to succeed. So you used my spare key and my title?" The betrayal burrowed deeper with each realization. "You committed fraud." Dad flinched. "We're your parents," Mom countered. "We've always supported both our girls equally." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Equally? That's what you call this?" My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out automatically, glancing at the notification. My insurance company alerting me to a lien placed against my vehicle. Ice replaced the fire in my veins. This wasn't just about money. This wasn't even just about my dream car. This was about respect, something my family had never given me. "You have 30 days, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. 30 days to get my car back, or I'm pressing charges for fraud and theft. Charges? Mom gasped. Against your own family? Family doesn't steal from each other. I turned toward the door. 30 days. Their shocked expressions followed me as I walked out, slamming the door with enough force to rattle the family photos on the wall. Photos that suddenly seemed like fiction, smiling faces hiding the truth that in this family, my dreams had always been considered disposable. The pawn shop reeked of desperation and stale coffee. I straightened my blazer, trying to look like a woman who belonged here rather than one whose world was collapsing. My reflection in a dusty display case showed mascara tracks I'd missed washing away this morning. Miss Rodriguez, the pawnbroker Gordon. According to his name tag, slid paperwork across the counter. His voice carried the practiced neutrality of someone who witnessed financial catastrophes daily. Your vehicle was brought in 6 days ago. Loan amount $52,000, plus our standard fees. I scanned the documents, my finance training kicking in automatically. $4,000 in fees? That's practically predatory. 6%, Gordon's face remained impassive. Classic car market's volatile. We take risks. And if the loan isn't repaid? After 35 days, we auction the vehicle. He tapped a paragraph of fine print. Full payment required by November 15th. $56,000 total. My stomach twisted as I flipped to the next page. There it was, my signature. Except it wasn't mine. The forgery was close enough to fool the pawn shop but missed the slight loop I always made on the D. This isn't my signature. Gordon's expression shifted slightly. Ma'am, if you're suggesting fraud. I'm not suggesting. I'm stating. I pulled out my driver's license, then a recent contract. Compare them. He studied the signatures, discomfort growing visible. I'll need to speak with my manager about this. Please do. And while you're at it, pull the security footage from when this transaction happened. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. I was in Berlin, Germany. 20 minutes and one manager later, the reality settled like concrete in my chest. My parents had committed actual fraud. Criminal fraud. The kind people went to jail for. We can file a police report right now, the manager offered. The word police made my throat close. I need time to think. Back in my apartment, I sank onto the couch, still wearing my coat. On the coffee table sat a family photo album I hadn't opened in years. I pulled it onto my lap, fingers trembling slightly as I flipped through plastic-covered memories. There was Camilla's sweet 16, a garden party with 50 guests, a professional photographer, and a cake taller than she was. I turned the page to find nothing for my 16th birthday, because I'd been working a part-time job at Target, saving for college application fees. I flipped forward. Camilla's high school graduation, where Dad rented a limousine. My college graduation ceremony, empty chairs where my parents should have been. Their flight mysteriously cancelled despite clear weather. They'd made it to Camilla's dance recital the very next day. Christmas 2019 stared back at me. Camilla standing beside a white BMW with an enormous bow, while I clutched a department store sweater to my chest, smiling that tight smile that doesn't reach your eyes. The pattern stretched across years, across milestones, across dreams. Not just subtle favoritism, but consistent sacrifices. My sacrifices to elevate Camilla. My phone rang, startling me. Uncle Pete's name lit up the screen. I just heard, he said, skipping hello. Your mother called, trying to spin it their way. And what way is that? I asked, suddenly exhausted. That you're overreacting. That family helps family. His disgusted snort carried through the phone. This isn't right, and you know it. I do know it. Tears threatened again. I just didn't think they'd go this far. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. After we hung up, Aunt Linda called, Dad's sister, always the peacemaker. They were just trying to help Camilla succeed, she pleaded. Thomas feels terrible. Can't you find some compassion? The doorbell saved me from answering. It was Nina from work, holding a bag from our favorite Italian place. I brought dinner, she said, taking in my red-rimmed eyes. You look like hell. I laughed for the first time in days. Thanks for the honesty. Over chicken parmigiana, I told her everything. Her outrage felt like a bomb, someone finally seeing the situation clearly. You know this is criminal, right? She asked, refilling my wine glass. They stole your car. I know. If anyone else did this. But it wasn't anyone else. I set down my fork. It was my family. That makes it worse, not better. Nina's voice softened. What does your boss say? That family can cut deeper than anyone. I'd broken down in his office earlier, something I'd never done in 7 years at Goldman. He's giving me space to handle it. The next morning I texted Camilla, coffee. Noon. The place near your apartment. Just us. She was already there when I arrived, wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy day. Her bouncy confidence from the kitchen confrontation had evaporated. Let me see the business plan, I said, sitting down. What? The business plan. Financial projections. Marketing strategy. You know, the documents any legitimate startup would have before seeking investment. Camilla fidgeted with her coffee cup. It's more fluid than that. Creative businesses. Stop. I held up my hand. Show me what you have. Actual documents. What she pulled from her bag was a mood board of skincare looks, a list of potential product names, and crude sketches of packaging. No supplier contracts. No formulation specifics. No financial modeling. This is it. My voice dropped dangerously low. This is what you stole my car for? Please, Denny. Her lower lip trembled. I just needed a chance to prove myself like you did. Everyone always talks about how successful you are, how responsible, how I should be more like you. I earned my chance, I said, each word deliberate. I didn't steal someone else's dream. Her shoulders slumped. I thought once the business took off, I could pay you back with interest, make everyone proud. And now. The first shipment arrived yesterday. She removed her sunglasses, revealing puffy eyes. Half the containers leaked during shipping. Customers are already complaining online. The formula separates after a few hours. Her voice cracked. Everything's falling apart. My phone buzzed with a text, from Camilla. I looked up at her, confused, then back at my phone. I need more money to fix this. Just a little more. Please, Denora, I'm desperate. She was watching me read it, her expression pleading. I set my phone face down on the table. Not a penny more, I said. You fix this or we all lose. Her face crumpled. I don't know how. For one dangerous moment, I felt the old pull, the family expectation that I'd clean up the mess, fix the problem, be the responsible one. Then I remembered my empty garage and the forged signature. You better figure it out fast, I said, standing up. The clock is ticking. 15 days after the garage revelation, Camilla's business lay in ruins. I tracked her failure while trying to focus on my own career, watching each disastrous update ping my phone like clockwork. Day 3, suppliers refusing further shipments after bounced payments. Day 8, refund demands flooding her social media. Day 10, business account frozen by the bank. Day 15, Camilla barricaded in her apartment, ignoring everyone's calls. I stared at my computer screen in my office at Goldman & Associates, the Berlin acquisition documents blurring before my eyes. The deal I'd spent 8 months orchestrating now hung by a thread because I couldn't focus. My mind kept circling back to the empty space in the garage where my Mustang should be. My desk phone rang. It was my boss, Director Barnes. Denora, I need those final projections by 4. His voice carried that edge of concern that had been growing over the past week. You look exhausted. Everything okay at home? I forced a professional smile into my voice. Everything's fine. You'll have those projections within the hour. The lie tasted bitter. Nothing was fine. My family had betrayed me. My sister's business was imploding, and my career might follow if I couldn't compartmentalize better. When Sunday arrived, I parked my rental at the curb outside my parents' house instead of in the driveway. A small rebellion, but it felt necessary. The familiar smell of pot roast, Mom's peace offering, wafted from the kitchen as I entered. Dad sat at the table, shoulders slumped under an invisible weight. Mom fussed with the china plates, the good ones reserved for holidays and crises. Camilla arrived late, her designer sunglasses hiding puffy eyes, her confident stride replaced by something slower, smaller. "Let's eat while it's hot," Mom said, serving Dad first as she always had. We sat in silence, broken only by the scrape of forks against plates. I cut my meat into precise squares, focusing on the pressure of knife against ceramic to keep from screaming. Mom broke first. "Camilla's having a difficult time with her business." She patted Camilla's hand. "Everyone fails sometimes." I set down my fork. "This isn't about failure. It's about theft." "We thought we were helping," Dad said quietly, the first words he'd spoken since I arrived. His weathered hands trembled slightly as he reached for his water glass. "We wanted Camilla to have her chance. At my expense." The words came out sharper than intended, slicing through the pretense. "You didn't just take a car. You took everything it represented." Camilla flinched. "Honey, it's just a vehicle," Mom began. "It was 7 years of overtime and missed vacations. It was Grandpa's legacy. It was the one thing I had that proved all my sacrifices meant something." My voice remained steady while something wild and wounded thrashed inside my chest. "And you took it without a second thought." The doorbell rang. Relief flooded Mom's face at the interruption until Dad returned with Uncle Pete behind him. My father's older brother filled the doorway with his broad shoulders and trademark scowl. "What the hell were you thinking, Thomas?" Pete demanded without preamble. His eyes found mine across the room. "Denora called me." Mom's spine stiffened. "This is a family matter, Pete." "Exactly why I'm here." He pulled out the chair beside me. "Someone needs to speak for the member of this family you're throwing under the bus." Dad's face reddened. "Now wait just a minute." "No, you wait." I reached for my briefcase beside the chair. The leather felt cool against my fingertips as I extracted the folder I'd prepared yesterday. We needed to talk about what happens next. I placed 3 printouts on the table: vehicle title, fraud statutes, pawn shop regulations, and sentencing guidelines. The papers landed with the weight of grenades. "This is a felony." I tapped the first document. "I could send you both to jail." "Denora." Mom's face drained of color. "You wouldn't." "I don't want to." The truth of this surprised me. Despite everything, I didn't want to destroy them. "But you need to understand what you've done." Dad stared at the papers, really seeing them. "Prison time. 2 to 5 years for title fraud." I kept my voice clinical, detached. "Plus restitution." Mom collapsed into tears, not the manipulative kind she used to end arguments, but ragged, ugly sobs that shook her shoulders. Dad reached for her hand, his own eyes glistening. "What have we done to you? To us?" For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine remorse in his face. "This is my fault." Camilla pulled off her sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes. Her voice cracked. "I pushed them to do it. I knew you'd never agree, so I convinced them it was temporary, that you'd understand once my business took off." She looked down at her manicured hands. "I never thought it would fall apart so fast." Uncle Pete leaned forward. "So what's the plan? Because that pawn shop won't wait forever." 28 days, I confirmed. "Then they auction the car." Mom dabbed at her eyes. "What can we do?" I pulled out a calculator. "We need to figure out what resources we have." For the next hour, we assessed our options. Dad thought they could get a home equity line of credit for $35,000, but it would take 2 weeks to process. Camilla agreed to sell her BMW and empty her savings account, which might yield another $18,000. I reluctantly committed $8,000 for my emergency fund. Uncle Pete watched this accounting with narrowed eyes. "I can loan you $6,000, he finally said, "but only because Denora shouldn't have to pay for this mess." The math was brutal. Even pooling everything, we were looking at 18 days before we could gather the full amount. And the pawn shop required an immediate deposit of $20,000 to halt the auction process. "I'll call tomorrow morning," Dad said, his voice steadier now. "See if they'll work with us on the timeline." When I left, the weight on my chest hadn't lifted, but something had shifted. The betrayal remained, but now there's a path forward, difficult, uncertain, but visible. Back in my apartment, I sat on the edge of my bed, a framed photo in my hands. My grandfather stood beside a gleaming blue Mustang, his arm around 12-year-old me. The summer light caught on the chrome bumper and in his smiling eyes. "Cars are just metal and chrome, Denora girl," he told me once. "It's what they represent that matters." In the stillness of my apartment, I finally understood what he meant. This fight wasn't just about getting my car back. It was about demanding the respect I'd earned. It was about teaching my family that my dreams mattered as much as Camilla's. I picked up my phone and dialed my parents' number. Dad answered on the first ring. "I'll help," I told him, my voice steady, "but things will never be the same." The silence stretched between us, filled with everything we couldn't undo. "I know," he finally said. "We'll make this right, Denora. I promise." I ended the call without saying goodbye. Some promises came too late to be comforting, but I'd take action over words any day. Tomorrow we'd start the fight to reclaim what was mine, not just a car, but my place in this family. The next 3 weeks blurred into frantic calculations and desperate phone calls. Camilla emptied her savings account. Mom sold her anniversary diamond bracelet. I maxed out my emergency credit line. Dad worked double shifts at the plant. Still $2,000 short. It wasn't enough. "It's not enough," Mom said, voice hollow as we gathered around the kitchen table. "The deadline is tomorrow at noon." The doorbell rang, and Uncle Pete stood on the porch, checkbook in hand. "Family helps family," he said, echoing Mom's words from weeks ago, but with entirely different meaning. The next morning, we all crowded into the bank, watching the digital clock tick toward noon as the manager processed the wire transfer. Dad's hand trembled as he signed the authorization. At 11:47, the confirmation appeared on the screen. "Payment received." For the first time in weeks, we breathed. The early morning sun caught on the chrome trim of my Mustang as I stood in front of Premier Pawn, gripping the receipt in my sweaty palm. After 35 days of family sacrifices, arguments, and enough tears to fill Lake Michigan, we'd scraped together the $56,000, every penny accounted for. My throat tightened as I pushed through the glass door. The same pawnbroker who took my car sat behind the counter, eyebrows lifting in recognition. "Miss Rodriguez," he said, sliding paperwork across the counter. "Here for your vehicle." I nodded, unable to trust my voice. My signature felt foreign as I scrawled it across each line, the pen trembling between my fingers. The broker counted the cashier's check twice before sliding over a folder containing my title and a set of keys. "All square," he said, but I barely heard him. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the keys. Standing in the lot, I traced my fingers along the midnight blue paint, feeling for imperfections, for evidence of mistreatment. The chrome trim caught sunlight, sending it back in blinding flashes. "They detailed it yesterday," the broker mentioned from behind me. "Policy before return." I didn't answer. This moment should feel triumphant. Instead, it tasted like ash, victory hollowed out by betrayal. The engine rumbled to life with a familiar growl that vibrated through the seat. Tears streamed unchecked down my face as I pulled away from the pawn shop, each mile between us allowing another fragment of emotion to break loose. 6 months later, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Sunday dinner? 5 p.m. Your father's grilling burgers." The invitation landed like a stone in my stomach. I considered declining, but typed back a simple "I'll be there" instead. Some conversations couldn't happen over text. Sunday arrived with perfect spring weather. The Mustang's engine announced my arrival before I even turned into their driveway. Dad stood by the grill, spatula frozen mid-flip as I parked. Healing had taken time. Trust hadn't been rebuilt overnight. But we'd found our way to something real, not the fiction of perfect family harmony, but authentic relationships built on respect rather than assumption. As I sat around that familiar table, watching my parents' faces light up at my stories from work, I realized something profound had shifted. They asked permission now. They valued my opinions. Most importantly, they understood that my dreams weren't disposable. "You were right, Grandpa," I whispered later, patting the dashboard as I drove home through the evening light. "It's what they represent that matters." And what this car represented now was more than just dreams made solid. It was respect, finally earned and freely given.